Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Birth Strategy Podcast live here on Clubhouse, live on YouTube and Facebook. And then we load it up to our websites and content to our Creative Birth Strategy website, as well as Audible, Amazon, Apple, and so many others. But I really appreciate everybody tuning in here. We're here every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. We're actually here Saturday and Sunday. Saturdays, we're here 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. We provide education, networking, and hopefully some strategy. And please, by all means, if you have a question, come up. So I'm going to do some posting here real quick. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Put up our domain website of the Creative Birth Strategies Club here and podcast. And then we'll do a quick invite for people that are in Clubhouse now. So we'll get some people in here as well. Good morning, Joseph. How are you?
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, beautiful day in the neighborhood, right? So out here to get another day in of education and insight. I thought yesterday's discussion went really well, talking about project management. So I'm a big believer in tackling subjects because I think what intimidates you uh, will allow you to grow. So, a lot of people are scared of new construction, and just because it's a different type of monster for them because they're so accustomed to rehabbing. So we'll talk about basic information just to kind of get your head wrapped around it, and potentially as you grow in as a real estate professional, there could be an opportunity for yourself, of course. So I know you're not in the build to rent, but I know you're buying properties in the area that are build to rent per se. So are you starting to see some development in some of the neighboring areas where you're buying properties?
Yeah, I actually passed a huge area that used to be a farm that was being leveled out. Looks like they were building some rent. They were going to be doing some building there.
Yeah.
Um, Couple areas that they're building out. Um, so yeah, no, there's a lot of built to rent. Obviously, uh, where I live, that there's a huge complex. They're building several hundred built to rent units. Um, and they call them luxury apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the Morristown Mall, they chopped off a big portion of it, and it looks like they're putting some some rentals in that area for that work live type place.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I guess they're all prepping for us to be a renter nation. I mean, that is what happens when the economy dips, right? People give up their house to become renters.
Well, I mean, listen, build to rent simultaneously addresses numerous issues in the housing market, helps increase supply in the market where shortages are near historic proportions, and affords residents the flexibility, amenities, in schools and safety and community where the families require. So, the millennial is your pushing movement in this market because they don't want to own. They really like the luxury of leaving it for others to address their needs. Uh, they're really only buying out of necessity if need be. And the whole dating the rate and marrying the home is a very scary notion to them because they don't see 5 year, 10 years down the road where the potential of the rate coming down. They just look at the rate in front of them. Can they afford it economically? And if you have a dual income and somebody loses their income, it can impact the bottom line of the affordability of that house, turns into a foreclosure. So it goes back to, does renting make sense? Does build to renting make sense? I think we'll talk about how build to rent is looked at from Wall Street's perspective, how we'll look at the difference between the individual landlord and the institutional fund. We'll break down also some of the hotter markets throughout the country or the surrounding areas of certain cities that are doing very well. Some that are in the inner cities are saturated, where, like, I'll use an example, Philadelphia, there's a lot of building going on, but I don't see a lot going up for sale. I see a lot going up for rent. So if I see 8 booms, 7 of the booms are new construction for rent. Now, are they looking at the potential for uh, those units to be for sale at one time or another in the future? Yes. But right now, today, they could sell the idea of rent. And obviously, there's an opportunity of affordable housing units being required to be filled in every one of those build outs. So most of these inner cities are requiring a 30% minimum of affordable housing or rentals for each one of those properties. Now, the only way they're getting sales done, as what I'm seeing, is they're giving massive grants either from the state or the Fed to monetize the down payment, where somebody's literally getting into the property pretty much at 100% financing. But my concern, if the values drop and you're in 100% financing, you're now upside down with the entire the community. So you're not going anywhere for a very long time, and that gives me horror reminders of what happened up in the Poconos, where people were convincing people from New York to move up to the Poconos, come up and live for free for 100% financing, blah blah blah. It was all of a scam where they were literally, the appraiser was in on it, the realtor was in on it, the lender was in on it. Everybody went to jail because a lot of these people would come in, buy something, and then they get an appraisal a year later, and they were like upside down by $100,000. So the build to rent model is different because Wall Street's behind it. There's a lot of financing behind it. We'll talk about some of the checklist items that you need to kind of consider when looking into build to rent. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors today. We are a very unique room here on Clubhouse. We started on Clubhouse. We then built out a website. We now have a podcast. We have educational worksheets for all of our listeners and engaged followers in this group. We also have an educational CE course for licensed real estate agents to understanding and navigating through asset-based lending in all 50 states. So we're a very unique anomaly. We're not a RIA. We're not an investor group. We are kind of just here, just to kind of be present. We have over 30 so far podcasts. We also have national events with Realty 411, where a lot of us travel to various cities throughout the country: Denver, LA, Philadelphia, New York, Fort Lauderdale, Dallas. I mean, we're very unique. I mean, there's other groups out there, God bless them, but we're not the biggest, but we're definitely a very qualitative group, and our moderators are very much appreciated. So I want to thank our sponsors today. First of all, I want to thank Perkatech, our social media strategist, Yordell Perkins, who orchestrates all this. He puts it all together. He edits it. He's a fantastic social media strategist. If you need a website, graphic artwork, email setup, whatever you need, email distribution, please reach out to him. He's a great guy. Known him for a decade now, and we're definitely a great partnership in a lot of the things we do together. Then I'd like to thank Realty 411 with Linda Pelagas, our national publication on real estate strategy and investor. It's probably got several thousand in distribution, but she provides also in national events for us to speak at throughout the country as well. I'd like to thank MB Capital, which is a referral partnership I have, which we provide unsecured business lines of credit. We have Michael D'Angelo here from MB Capital. We also, I like to thank Lenmark Capital, where I represent. I'm a senior loan advisor and head of origination. We provide asset-based lending for real estate investors, 30-year fixed money, fixed to rent, fixed to flip, new construction, build to rent, multifamily 5+ units, and or mixed use. And we also provide construction lines of credit. So let's dive into build to rent 101. Okay. Creating a checklist for new construction is a smart way to stay organized and ensure that every aspect of the project is accounted for. And we'll talk about really the most comprehensive part of the checklist. The GC handles pretty much everything in the process of building the project, but the initial planning, I think, is the most important for the financing. And we'll talk about it, because if you don't have the financing, and if you're just doing everything cash, that's different. But if you need financing, there's certain things that you're going to need. There's a needs list. Okay. One, you need a personal financial statement on yourself or any of the business partners that are involved. You also need a corporate veil, an LLC that either bought the land or is buying the land. I really prefer as a lender that you already own the land. It's always a lot easier to get financing because you already have money skin in the game. And you need to basically do initial planning checklist. Determine the purpose of the construction. Can you maximize that piece of land for a 2-family, a 1-family, 4-family, 3-family? What can you make? Can you develop multiple units on that land? Establish a budget per property, per unit, meaning like if you're building single family homes, what's the budget? Right? What is the overview of that? And we'll talk about cost per square foot in a little bit. Obviously, identify the right architect or designer when if because it's necessary, because you need to put renderings together, because you got to back into, once you have the renderings, you get back into a budget. Obtaining necessary permits and approvals from the local authorities. Keep telling you guys, you got to get yourself to a zoning meeting, see how it works. Hiring the right people, the people winning at the zoning meetings are the people you want to hire. Then obviously site preparation, clearing the construction site, grading the land, installing temporary utilities, water, you got to get water from the street if need be, erosion control measures if required. So this is just initial, just kind of bare bones. You buy the land, okay, where a lender really likes to know that you own the land, and take care of the third party, because there's no way, time-wise, you're going to be able to buy the land unless you're experienced. There's no way that you're going to be able to buy the land and get all the permits, everything wrapped up in a bow in a month. It's a 3 to 6 month process. So a lot of lenders want you to buy the land, go through the permit process, get your renderings, get your construction budgets, have your personal financial statements, have your cash reserves, and understand the financing leverage, because there's a lot of money out there for new construction. Right now, a good direct lender is lending up to 90% median on the construction and acquisition of the property. Meaning, you buy the property, I'm going to reimburse on what you bought it for to a certain loan to cost. I'm also going to reimburse you for all the third party costs that you've spent. And then I'm going to go potentially up to 100% construction of the vertical. I'm also going to escrow payments up to 6 to 12 months to make sure you don't go into mortgage shock. I'm also going to look at you bringing the first draw in addressing the groundbreaking and the foundation install, and then I reimburse you. So there's a lot of moving parts to new construction where a lot of the plans, the pre-planning is extremely important. Rates right now are somewhere between 10 and 12%, and that's really based on experience. If you have 5 to 10 rehabs completed in the last 48 months, that could equate to a new construction build, but you're going to probably be at a higher rate, maybe around 12% and maybe a point and a half. If you've done 2 new construction completed in the last 48 months, you're most likely looking at anywhere between 10 and 11% and a point and a half on the origination. So the rate would be around 10 to 11% interest only, and then 1.5 on the origination. That's not bad money, because right now banks and credit unions, if they're doing new construction, they're looking at maybe 60% on reimbursing you on acquisition of third party, and maybe 80% max on construction. You're going to have money in on the purchase side, and you're going to have a lot of money in on the construction side. You're going to have a lot of money sitting out there. So when you see construction stalled, most likely it's a cash flow issue with the developer, or the bank has a cash flow issue with the distribution of the money to finish the transaction. There's so much money now being poured into new construction in the asset-based lending space. That's why the institutional funds are not going toward the single family through 4-family rehab properties. They're buying land and they're building out townhome communities, long strips of single family properties in areas 20 miles out from major cities, 10 miles out from major cities, convenient to transportation, with eat, work, and live environment where they have office space to work from virtually, near airports or close to airports. That's why Las Vegas is on the hotspot, because they have the most convenient airport to get anywhere in the world in Las Vegas. So if you're anywhere within 20 miles of Las Vegas, hey, I'll rent here, work virtually, and then travel to my destinations to my clients. Why wouldn't I do that? Tax base is good, and there's so many tax benefits that are being provided to new construction developers. So you need to keep that in consideration. So hang on, let me just get one thing here. Let me find something here. Give me 1 minute. Let's talk about some top U.S. real estate markets to build to rent, and then we'll go into some of our moderators this morning. If anybody wants to raise their hand and jump in on the parade, by all means, please do so. So number one is Dallas Fort Worth, Texas, and again, surrounding areas of these cities. Number two is Atlanta, Georgia. Number three is Phoenix, Arizona. Number four is Houston, Texas. Number five is Orlando, Florida. Number six, Austin, Texas. Number seven, Nashville, Tennessee. Number eight, Charlotte, North Carolina. Number 10, Tampa, Florida. Number 11, Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. Number 12, Denver, Colorado. Number 13, Las Vegas, Nevada. Number 15, Miami, Florida. 16, Salt Lake City, Utah. Number 18 is San Antonio, Texas. Seattle, Washington is the next one. Portland, Oregon. San Diego, California. Indianapolis, Indiana. Columbus, Ohio. So if you notice, Northeast is not really looking to build the rent right now. They're just trying to lick their wounds and maybe do some commercial conversions. You're not seeing anything hard on the West Coast and the California area. Everybody's getting the hell out of Dodge. Good morning, Joseph. Welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to build a rent 101 understanding market dynamics and process.
Good morning, Joe. So I'm a buy and hold investor. I also invest in tax liens in the state of New Jersey. Yeah, no, listen, build to rent is what they're all chasing, right? As the interest rates are going up, I've seen stories where all the home builders are actually buying down interest rates to get the buyers to take the properties. So build to rent is the next set of strategy, which we all know buying and building and getting rentals creates wealth. But like you also said earlier, they're also setting it up where they could sell these off, right? And they could turn them into condos or homes where people could buy them, and an old space where they could address the market demand as it comes along. But yeah, it's an interesting strategy. It's something I've never considered. It's a big undertaking. Don't have the expertise for it, so I look forward to hearing what the others have to say about it.
Thanks, Joe. So let's break down some costs by region per square foot, new construction, what that looks like by region. So like in the Northeast right now, you're somewhere between $150 and $250 per square foot to build out. So if you compare that to renovation, you're probably about $100 more per square foot, but you're getting a brand new home. Now it comes also with a little bells and whistles of concern. Is your builder finishing a good finish on the property? I've seen some horrendous work on new construction, but again, somewhere between $150 to $200. Now, compared to renovation costs, you're between $100 and $200. So there's definitely $100 variable. New construction in the Midwest, you're somewhere between $100 and $200 per square foot on the new construction. And on the renovation side, you're somewhere between 100 again to 100, about 100 to $150 a square foot. So there's again another $100 difference. Then if you're going into I'm sorry, the Midwest is more 80 to 150, $125 per square foot on the renovation. Now in the West Coast, you're probably looking anywhere between 150 and 350 a square foot. On new construction, where renovation is still around 150 because it gets more expensive on the West Coast based on overheads and actually construction labor gets a little more expensive as well. So your West Coast and East Coast get very expensive. The Midwest, right down the middle to the Southeast, is where there's a huge opportunity, an opportunity for new construction development. You could buy a tract of land near where maybe you own some properties, leverage that with a local bank maybe, or leverage it with an asset-based lender that's built a relationship with you. And that's how you kind of build out your environment for building new construction, build to rent 101. Good morning, Justin, and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning. 101, understanding market dynamics of build to rent.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. Justin Jefferson. I'm in the Louisiana market currently. I've done several fix and flips, managed a good bit of new construction in the past year and a half. And I'm definitely going to be looking to do some build to rent in a different through a number of strategies. But I came to my conclusion, right, just by looking at the market and looking at where the demand was. I would say in my area, new construction became the real thing to go to. In around 2016, we had a major flood, so demand for housing. If you had the new, obviously there was such a demand. Anybody with a house that had been renovated and fixed up. Okay, so about a year was like that. And then as these new areas opened up, as these flood zones changed, and so on and so forth, um, the new builders were getting the first choice from the buyers, right? And so as this pattern has picked up in society, and I think, I'm 33. I think I might have the last of, or I don't know that there are too many people, even my age, who have the desire to live in a renovated home and then go to their buddy's house or this, that, and the third. There are certain homes that are built in a certain way, structurally, so structurally sound that obviously homes were built 40 and 50 years ago a lot more structurally sound than they are being built today, right? For trees and the way the lumber is. But if you look at the demand, if you look at your long term goals, or if you have long term goals to hold these properties, new construction just checks. It wins the argument, right? In the pros versus cons over a renovated home. If I'm going to go in and I'm going to buy an older home and I still have to spend, you know, quite a bit of money to renovate it, update it. We're getting to an age of technology where technology is going to be heavily incorporated into our homes and so on and so forth. There's so many changes going on in the world, right? It really makes more sense, right, for your investment in the future, right? I'm not saying there's never a case where renovation is a good idea. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the investment in new construction gives you a better long-term result as far as maintenance is concerned. It gives you a long-term result as far as your immediate value, so your return on your investment, and in comparison to the other things in the area. And it also helps with your long-term value. 10 let's say your exit is in about 5 years, 3 or 5 years from now, you'll still have a fairly new roof. You'll still have a fairly new property. And when you go to refinance or when you go to sell that property, you'll be in a much better position than trying to explain to somebody that you opened up the walls and did this, or explain to somebody that you brought this up to code, as opposed to having the latest thing in there. Because if they want to keep it for X amount of time or this, that, and the third, right, the chances are highly increased of them having maintenance issues. And it's going to be even harder for them to exit when it's time to exit. So those are the reasons I'm looking forward to new construction, and just playing it safe with that.
I'm going to jump on top of that a little bit too, Justin, because private landlord versus the institutional fund investing into the U.S. market impact, right? The impact of private landlords versus institutional funds investing in the U.S. rental market can vary in several ways. So private landlords, there's flexibility and personalization, right? Private landlords often have flexibility in managing their properties and can personalize the approach to tenant relations, maintenance, and rental agreements based on the individual preferences. Local expertise. Private landowners may intimidate knowledge of local market conditions, enabling them to make more informed investment decisions and adapt to the changing trends more quickly than institutional investors. Community engagement. Private landlords may be more deeply embedded in the communities where properties are located, fostering stronger relationships with tenants and local stakeholders. Property maintenance. While maintenance standards can vary among private landlords, some may prioritize hands-on management and responsive maintenance, leading to higher tenant satisfaction and retention rates. Now, there's nothing, I mean, I'm not knocking the big bad bear of institutional funds, but there's definitely a difference. They can scale and they have resources, right? They have unlimited funds. They have professional management. It could be very cold, meaning, it is what it is. It's black and white. but they have access to unlimited capital. So you need to be smarter in that build to rent space. You need to have all your ducks in a row. Oh, I want to build a house, but you need to know how to put together architectural designs, have a good general contractor that's done new builds, understanding what the finishes are going to look like. Is it compared to the market where you are? Are you being overzealous in your numbers? Or are you taking contingencies into your new construction? Then also institutional funds have portfolio diversification. They can, they can put a townhome community of single family build outs to build a rent, put a community room, a pool. They could put a mini golf course. They could put a pet garden. They could do all kinds of things where, the affordability for the individual private landlord is limited. So you got to look at spec development. You got to look at small developments, but you can get into it over time. Get that first new construction deal done. It's unlimited, the opportunity. And in both the favor of the private landlord and the institutional fund, there's a offset of supply in rental housing. Right now there's a lot of rental units coming to the market, but you're going to see even more as the rates do not come down. They're not just going to come back down to 5% because you want that to happen. Inflation is not going to just disappear. Government creates inflation. So the supply of rental housing is going to increase. The lure of home ownership is going to decrease for some time. I see for the next 36 months. One thing that's going to be interesting to see with the build to rent space is the private landlord versus the institutional fund in the rental prices. What is that final rental market price going to look like? And institutional funds have tenant experience with property management companies. Yes, it's a little cold, but they have the experience of handling and facilitating thousands of units. And then there's regulatory considerations. Institutional investors may face additional regulatory scrutiny and compliance requirements compared to private landlords. You're constantly seeing, do not let these guys come in here. They don't know who these people are. Communities don't want outside influences in the build to rent. They want somebody local. They want somebody that really understands the market. There's definitely important roles here in the new construction rental space between private landlords and institutional funds. But I'm going to tell you for the fact, new construction is not going to go away. I think build to rent is a very unique opportunity. And as you grow out of inventory as a landlord, you might almost be forced to identify land as your next venture. As Will Rogers said, you can't make more land. Good morning, Timothy. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning. Build to Rent 101, understanding market dynamics and process.
Good morning, Joseph. Good morning, room. Good morning, everyone. This is a great discussion. Something that I've actually thought of for a little while. I'm Timothy Doyle, I'm an old real estate investor up here in Lehigh Valley. And just some of the things that I took out of the conversations, I think with Joe Mortella and a couple of the other ones. And one thing that he hit on was Woodbridge, I think it was Woodbridge Mall, or Bridge Mall, one of the malls up in New Jersey, where they're looking to parse out some of that land or some of that building to now have housing, whether it be rental or what have you, more of a retrofit. And some of the things that we've said where, we're doing, it would be more cost effective to do new than it would be to do retrofit. And I get that. However, there are some things I had thought of as far as doing, affordable living, which I don't want to really divulge 100%, but it's a way of maintaining. It was a design of maintaining costs as well as maintaining structure, maintaining temperature, all within one roof with singular residences all under that same roof. You won't have issues to deal with as far as like, say, Mother Nature decides to have a blizzard one day, and your people, inside this one substructure, building other structures underneath of an already existing structure. It's a little complex to really show the plan. It's a new concept I've thought of, but we'll see how it works on paper. Now, speaking of on paper, remember, everybody, when you were doing a project, your GC will help you control finances, but ultimately the business is yours. So my suggestion, if you're not good with project management, get together with somebody who's good at managing projects, helping you manage your business. Work with people smarter than you in those areas. I do. So, in fact, actually, it's kind of what I do for a living. So, have your whiteboard up with your common goal in mind and break out that structure and turn it into what they call a work breakdown structure. And this way you can define all your swim lanes and who owns them eventually. So that's it for me, Joseph. And I'm kind of surprised, Joseph. There are a lot of reports, and Las Vegas I agree with, is a good area. But I'm surprised where you don't have places like up in the Northeast, and I know probably because building costs, but places like around Chicago O'Hare and around Detroit. I'm known a lot, probably not a lot of people want to live up in that area. But
There's massive problems there,
yeah.
Timothy. Massive.
Yeah, and it's a shame because those are central hubs to go just about anywhere in the U.S. you need to.
Yeah, no. Listen, whenever I get an inquiry on Detroit and the county of Detroit and Chicago, I mean, it is highly scrutinized. The political ecosystem in those two cities are horrendous right now to lend in. I mean, the foreclosure impact over the next 3 years is going to be brutal, brutal. I mean, what they're doing to those cities is it's just a shame because they were wonderful cities at one time, and both have a lot of problems in front of them right now.
Well, Joseph, like in the micro eye of counties and cities, you see what happened to Bethlehem when the steel mill closed.
Yeah, it collapsed the whole area. And then all of a sudden now you can't. The saturation in Bethlehem now is at a peak, right?
Right. History is doomed to repeat itself.
Yeah, it's just going to take longer. I mean, people just got to get a reality check. I think, Tim. That's what I personally think.
Well, I know. We'll see. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised within the next 10, 15 years if those surrounding areas start revitalizing themselves. So
I personally think Detroit has a much better chance of recovery than Chicago right now in the next 5 to 10 years. Because they've had resurgences, so it's just a little stagnant right now. But I personally think if I was going to, as a lender, I have more comfort in Detroit lending than Chicago lending right now. The media is doing a horrendous service to really scare the shit out of you to be in Chicago, to be honest with you. I mean, fact.
The media will scare the crap out of anybody.
Yeah.
Research.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, we're talking about build to rent and where the impact is. Building 101, you need to see what's going on in your surroundings. Like Joseph and Tim are already talking about massive conversions of office retail into residential. There's just a less of a need. People are working from home, but with the increase of rental supply, where you're bringing 1,000 more units to a mall, where all the conveniences are there, how will that impact you as a landlord? And for you to do new development and to maybe consider new construction. Okay, you have to think about that because the diversification of housing stock, how will that look like and how will that appeal to the millennial or the Gen X or Gen Z or the senior community? What is the objective to those 1,000+ doors units in a mall area? I think it's going to be more 55 plus, but I could be wrong. Timothy, what's your thoughts there? And then we'll go back to Joseph on that, and then we'll continue to Michael.
Sure. Actually, Joseph, because you have a lot of mixed use areas as well right now. I've seen it in the Bethlehem area, and I've also seen it in I hate to say the Center Valley area, where a lot of people like to be right around those shopping areas, like real close. They don't have to go too far. Millennials are more my age. Yeah, we like things closer. We like our conveniences. We like our creature comforts. The majority of us. There are some, some on the other side of the fence, and it's okay. But as far as the newer generations coming up, they're they would like their instant gratification. So in order for them to go to a restaurant, they might not care what the quality is 100%. It might be a decent quality food, but the convenience is right there. They don't have to get in a car. They don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to, have the extra added expense and time of getting XYZ. And I think what it is they're trading time for dollars. If you see over time, over a professional of a new and upcoming, I think Gen X or Gen Z group, they want the instant gratification. They would much rather spend the money and have the instant gratification over the time spent to get a better deal or a better rate.
Well,
Does that make sense?
yeah, it does. And let me give you another great example in our local area where we had the Philly Realty 411 last year down at the Navy Yard, right? The Navy Yard for the last 50 years denied requests to bring residential housing to that area. All of a sudden, in the last 24 months, during COVID, when all these office retail spaces were going empty and people were working from home, wow, a light bulb went off, and they approved rental housing and development in the Navy Yard. Because if they don't do it, no one's going to go there. Why would you want to drive? There's no train to go there, so you need to take a shuttle from the last train stop near Wells Fargo to get to the Navy Yard. Okay, so it's extremely inconvenient for somebody that doesn't drive to get to the Navy Yard. Now, if you convert that into a rental and somebody that had to take a shuttle from another area of Philadelphia and gets to live down there and just walk to work, how much more convenient and what do you think the retainage will be to the build to rent concept there?
Oh yeah, it'd be a higher percentage. I agree.
You have pharmaceutical down there. You have Urban Outfitters has their world headquarters there. You have the Navy, there. You have the stadium environment there as well. Xfinity, you have the casino. I think it's brilliant, but it's not like it was a genius move. It was out of necessity because it was going to become a ghost town in the next 24 months because of virtual working. Now they could bring all the people back and say, "Hey, come back to work. Hey, you live right now down the block. There's no excuse."
Mhm.
Right? So I think you're going to see this in every market center throughout the country because it's going to help revitalize the urban areas from really bad environments over the last 2 to 3 years with crime and the quality of life. Adaptive reuse and sustainability. A lot of these buildings, they're very beautiful once they're redone into apartment living with light mixed use. And I mean, the only consideration for the private landlord versus the institutional fund to build the rent is the affordability challenges. Because some of these are going to take that you're going to need you're going to need a bottomless wallet in some of these buildings. And what is that going to impact? How is that going to impact commercial real estate 10 years from now when there's not a lot of it? And God forbid, now it's suddenly everybody forgets about COVID, forgets about everything else. And now they want to go back to work and that build to rent concept slows down and home ownership accelerates over the next 5 to 10 years. I'm really interested to see how this cycle goes over the next decade.
Right, same here, and all that, Joseph, you can also build out as a part of your exit plan or as a part of risk mitigation in your like when you're doing a project notebook. Identify those risks and identify what your exit plans are for each one of those risks as you approach them. And I agree. Like with some of the institutional folks, I get it, but when you're dealing with private folks, and I also agreed to the statement, you should also own the land, not lease it, because what happens when someone pulls the bottom out from underneath your business? So that's a risk there. But yeah, these are things that I was kind of looking at, and as well as some of the things you could use, and as far as building a business or building those things in those areas, like I hate to say it, and I'm not going to say private residential, I'm going to leave that out, but more of a commercial, not a commercial rehab per se, but a new build inside of a commercial building. Let's put it to it that way. You have the art of negotiation. Make sure you know who the landowner is, do your homework, do stuff like that. See if you can get, funding for it from whomever the person who owns it. Again, negotiate the deal.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, regulatory and zoning considerations are going to be massively changed over the next 5 years because of build to rent. You know, people are going to be more welcoming to a new construction because of the lack of the rental inventory. I can tell you, I learned a lot of this from my dad, who was on various zoning boards. You know, the master plan constantly is getting changed based on regulatory and zoning considerations. So, if you really want to get into the build to rent space initially, don't go identify the land. Go identify the zoning department where you're, and the zoning meetings where you're going to do this potential development, and see how the relationship is with the zoning board and how they welcome or don't welcome new development. Okay. All the cities are being impacted, all the small communities are being impacted the same way. Joseph, your additional thoughts to Build to Rent 101, understanding market dynamics and process.
Yes, I think what we talked about, you were talking about was that they're building it for the older generation, right? That are moving in. I don't
Yeah.
disagree with the amenities that's going in the luxury apartments. I think that they are building it, but they're building it in such a way where it's appealing to both not only the older generation but the younger generation, where they have their all their resources in front of them and conveniences available to them. You know, let's face it, right? Assisted living and you know, other types of housing for older folks is expensive. So you go and you build a luxury apartment, you're charging more money for it. I just saw a 2-bedroom apartment go up for $3,000 a month. You know, on a single family house, you're not even getting that much. So you're probably getting $800 more a month they're charging at that luxury apartment. But you look at it, the older folks, they have the elevators, they have the convenience, they have the stores right there. They have all the amenities where they don't have to drive as much, right? They have the on-site clubhouse that they can use, the on-site gym, and sometimes a pool. So they have that type of environment, and the $3,000 a month is still cheaper than the $5,000 a week that the assisted living would cost. So you start looking at situations like that. Yeah, it makes sense for them to build. I don't know that they are building towards these people, but it would make sense as a business strategy. And then, you know, if you start marketing to the younger professionals who are making a decent chunk of change that can afford to pay for those amenities, you're also getting that attraction. And they also have an exit strategy where they can convert them to condos if worse comes to worse. But yeah, it's interesting on the concept that they're playing right now, the builders.
Yeah, because I'll tell you,
The rentals.
yeah, because like if you go down out toward more, you know, I would say suburban rural, now rural is no longer really rural. I'm seeing more townhome community build outs that are one floor, that are 2 to 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, senior friendly. But listen, I like a walk-in shower. I don't want a tub. I don't have kids to put into a bathtub. I don't need that. Okay. I like not having to climb all types of stairs. That takes a certain type of tenant. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't mind walking downstairs to go to my gym instead of driving a couple miles. So and then if I want to work virtually, you know, hey, great. I got like a office space in my community where I can just get out of my house, walk my dog, bring the dog back, and then walk over to the community center to do my work virtually. I mean, you know, I think where these developments are going to be very appealing is about transportation, whether bus, train, airport. So if you're going to do new development, you need to look at the conveniences to those 3 major ways of getting people around, because the transportation is not that appealing when you're when you're competing with the institutional funding of a mall carve out where they're bringing 1,400 units, they're putting a gym in there, they're putting a medical facility, they're putting they already have elevators, they already have handicap accessible curbing, they have everything. They have walkways. It's all there for them. All they're doing is just reconfiguring. You're doing a new construction. Maybe it's not makes sense to go up. Maybe it makes sense to go back if there's enough land to develop out. Because I think Either way, over the next 5 years, both build to rent and build to sell strategies are likely to continue playing significant roles in the real estate market, but they may be influenced by different factors and trends. Okay, rental demands versus the rates of the market, mortgage rates. Urban versus suburban versus rural, home aspirations, home ownership aspirations, the suburban shift, supply chain challenges that we're not even talking about right now. Okay, and affordability pressures, like Joseph talked about, the rental comparatives to a single family home to a luxurious rental, Class A rental in a property that has gym, office facilities, medical conveniences, transportation conveniences, etc. With both build to rent and build to sell strategy are likely to remain relevant over the next 5 years. Their growth trajectories may be influenced by different market dynamics, demographic trends, and regulatory considerations. Builders and developers may need to adapt their strategies to capitalize on emerging opportunities to address evolving consumer preferences in the real estate market. Good morning, Michael. Welcome. Brief overview of who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning. Build to Rent 101 Understanding Market Dynamics and Process.
Yeah, appreciate the time. Thank you, Joe. Michael D'Angelo with MB Capital Solutions. We work with small business owners, real estate investors, anyone that's looking to gain access to funds for business opportunities or to have additional working capital. Typically, clients 50 to 150K in the unsecured revolving business lines. It's a great tool in the funding toolbox to use to leverage, the unsecured lines as opposed to tapping into your pocket for gap funding. So obviously, Joe, I work with your clients all the time, help them get, funds for down payments, reserves, helping, get the funds for money deposit, getting the rehab piece started for, you'd reimburse them on those draws. So it's a great way to have funds to get projects started or to have liquidity for multiple deals. In regards to the conversation, a lot of great topics have been touched on. Everyone's, I agree with everyone's point so far. I think in this current real estate market that we're in, there's such a lack of inventory. Everybody is so, I guess, comfortable with their nice cushy rates. They're not trying to move out of home, so you have a little less activities in regards to the MLS and sales. You see it all the time. The residential mortgage game right now is a knife fight. Most of those guys are cutting bait and trying to find something else. So in such a market, if there's no inventory, it only makes sense to create some inventory. And savvy investors and builders, they're looking for the right opportunity in the right areas for lands to build these the new inventory. So yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And Michael has been a great asset of working with me on a lot of different levels of finance. He's worked with me, for me. We work in collaboration now. He's now representing MB Capital, and we do some work through Sebastian Love Capital, which is our private capital group that Michael and I have. So, we ask some basic questions when it comes to new construction. We want to know that you know what you're doing. How many rehabs have you completed in the last 48 months? How many flips have you completed in the last 48 months? How many new construction projects have you completed in the last 48 months? These are basic questions. How many new construction that you have third party completed in the last 48 months? These are all basic questions. Not what your friend's done. Not what the guy that just walked by the building's done. What have you done, or anybody that's in your partnership in this project for build to rent? You got to understand the upfront costs and the development risks. You got to understand the permit process. You got to understand the competition with institutional investors. You also need to understand delayed returns. A new construction project could take 6 months. So you're not making money right away. It's a slow drip, but it's a very solid drip. Okay. There's also regulatory and legal challenges. There's also limited historical performance data. Like, don't tell me you're going to build out a single family home and you're going to use short-term rental on an area that's never had a short-term rental. I don't believe you. I don't care about your creativity. I don't care that you're thinking outside the box. I got to think about, does the property support a market rent to the final build? I don't care about your imagination about unicorns and leprechauns. I care about the reality of financing a deal that makes sense. Build to rent makes sense if you're buying correctly the land, the permit process is taken care of, and you have a general scope of work that makes sense to create an accelerated value of a finished product. And then that matches up with an accelerated rental market. Now, is that rental market there, depending on where you're looking? These are things that you have to think about. It's just not lickety split. We're just not going to give you a loan because you're a nice person. We're giving you a loan to make sure we get our money back in the build to rent space. But again, it's a great opportunity when you're buying properties in an area and you identify a piece of land. Buy the land, buy it cash, use MB Capital construct gap money, do the development work. We'll reimburse you a very strong portion of that money on the acquisition and the third party work, meaning permits, architectural designs, etc. That's 10 grand right out of pocket. Hiring an architect and getting all the permits. If you're not willing to spend that money, why would I put my money out for you? You gotta take the common sense approach. I get at least a call a day about new construction. I send the same checklist out to people every time. Guess how many I get back out of the 10 calls a week I get on new construction? Maybe one, maybe two. There's dreamers and there's actual factual people. I think you want to lean toward the more factual environment. You want to be that individual that knows what you're looking at. I bought the land for 40 grand. My permits and my architectural designs are 10 grand. Everything I had to prep another 10 grand. I'm into it for $60,000. My new construction cost is $225,000 to build this house out. If I want to make it a two-family, it's 265. I'm just giving some rough numbers. The back end value for a single family is 400. The back end value for a new construction two-family is 500,000. These are numbers you need to know. You also need to work with a very good realtor in that market and a property management company, because if you're going to plan on holding it to build to rent, not build to sell, you need to know what the finishes look like for a good rental. Now that real estate agent might be the same person working for the property management company. So you got to set up your back end opportunity in holding the property once you get the final CO and the final permits and okay to occupy the property. Good morning, Robert. Welcome. Brief overview: who you are, what you do, and do you have a statement or question in regards to build to rent 101 understanding market dynamics and process?
Morning, Joe. Yes, I'm Rob, real estate investor out of New Jersey, the New Jersey, New York area. I had a question in terms of finding like properties to develop, and also so I'm based in like the Central Jersey area. Like somebody earlier was talking about the Woodbridge Mall going up for sale.
Well, it's sold. It's sold actually for 75 million.
Yep, yeah. So, yeah, I was saying like, how are people finding these deals? Or is it like all these like through connections and everything? Because I have a private equity mentor, he's been my mentor for like 10 years in New York City, who said if I find my deal, we will do it together. Doesn't matter the amount. So, I have a strong backing, but now I'm looking to find a way how to source these deals, and I'll be new getting into the commercial side. So, how do you think people are looking for and finding these deals?
Have you ever heard of elbow grease?
Nope.
Yeah, it's called your elbows. Get to work. Yeah, I mean, like no one's just going to hand you a piece of land. You got to prospect markets that make sense based on transportation, conveniences, cost, your location.
Yep.
Okay, so like say the Woodbridge Mall gets cut up in a couple different pieces, right? And so is that an area that makes sense to develop a piece of land there. No, you already got 1,000 units coming to the market in that area. So that maybe that area is going to be a little saturated for a while. Maybe you look. I'm just using an example. If you're down in New Brunswick, I know that. Maybe you look at East Brunswick or North Brunswick. I mean, look up the 287 corridor and just look for bare land for sale. Sometimes there's just bad. There's just bad listings on land too. People just don't know how to list land as well. So you could also see bodega signs for sale for land. You could also buy lists of land for sale in certain zip codes. Focus by zip code. Don't focus by county or town. Focus on a zip code.
Yep.
And
You say that's what I'm doing, and so New Brunswick would be my number one option. Like the Rite Aid, I'm not sure if you're familiar with New Brunswick. How
Yeah.
familiar with that?
yes, I am. I'm a Rutgers
Okay,
graduate.
Rite Aid just sold in New Brunswick, and somebody's going to be putting up an 8-unit building
There you go.
on the Rite Aid. So, but I was looking the whole time. I never saw that go on the market. It might have been off the market deal. So how would something like that?
I
Is
mean,
there a way to like, get in those circles or
you
get
guys
to know the mayor?
you gotta start going to real events. Like where they're having like a Builders Industry Association, a CCIM event. A higher level. Not like listen, Joe, myself, Michael, Timothy. I'm sure Justin too. We all frequent local investor groups, but the higher level, the 102, 103, where the discussions are a little higher, more commercial, industrial, office, retail, multifamily, like Biz Now. They have events all over the country. That's a higher level environment. You're going to meet a higher level real estate investor slash realtor that's identifying those type of opportunities for their investors. So like you're going to have to spend $100 to walk in the door or $500 to walk in the door to get in that surrounding. They're not selling anything. They're not selling anything at the back of the table. It's not a sell-a-thon, but it weeds out the time wasters that want to get into the commercial space but don't want to put the skin in the game. You got to go to the Biz Now events. You got to go to like the IMN events. These are where the bigger players are. Like I've gone to a half a dozen IMN events. They're great. They're nice. They're good to go to every once in a while, but I'm more focused in single family through 25 units right now. So, and I'm looking for the smaller investor to develop them into a bigger investor. But if you're looking at just for land opportunities, I'd probably start off at Biz Now. That's based on areas. I know they have one in New Brunswick every once in a while. I know they have one up in the North Jersey City area once in a while. I would go onto their site to kind of see what that all looks like for you. That's probably where I would start, or a good CCIM event where you have a higher level graded investor, real estate service provider, more in that commercial landscape. That's what I would do, Rob. I hope that helps.
Oh yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, thanks.
So, listen, build to rent is not for everybody. You might want to just renovate properties and just build up a portfolio. But then you find that one piece of land. There's a way to make money not building properties and just developing the land to be built. So you could buy a piece of land, do all the permits and processes, get the general construction bid, and then put it back up for sale for accelerated value because you did all the dirty work. So you could hotel a piece of land to a developer or somebody that wants to do new construction. You just did all the elbow grease. That is another area of expertise where people specialize in. They go to the sheriff sales, they buy all these lots in a certain market or certain zip code. They do all the dirty work where they get all the development, all the permits, get all the renderings, and then they put it back up to sell. They put the rendering up for sale as a new development opportunity and they try to attract it to contractors or smaller investor landlords. That makes a lot of sense. You could do that. That's lesser an investment. You can go to Mike or myself and buy a piece of land for 40 grand, spend 20 grand in third party, you're into it for 60 grand, and sell the land construction ready with permits for 100 grand or 110 or 125. You just made yourself 40, 50 grand. What did you do? Did you ever build the property? No. The light bulb goes off. You're gonna have to have money into a deal at the end of the day. Joseph, your final thoughts in Build to Rent 101, understanding market dynamics and process.
No, good discussion as always, Joe. Great topic. It's really interesting just keeping up to date, like what the builders are doing out there in various markets to get an idea on what the other methods are that everybody's employing. So, no, good conversation. It's interesting to see how this all rolls out, and how they adjust strategies as needed to make this work. So, yeah, good conversation, Joe.
Thank you, Joseph. Timothy, your final thoughts to Build to Rent 101, understanding market dynamics and process.
Again, yeah, great room as always, Joe. We're good. Good observation on the land and build ready. Depending on markets, that's definitely a great little nugget for anyone who's out there, including myself. So thank you very much, and have a great day and prosperous week, everyone. Bye, Donna.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Timothy. Justin, your final thoughts on Build to Rent 101, understanding market dynamics and process.
Great comments as always. I always just gonna echo something that's well echoed in the industry's location, right? And just find the pockets of opportunity for you to, take advantage of it, man, and play for the long haul.
Thank you, Justin. Michael, your final thoughts to Build to Rent 101, understanding market dynamics and process.
I just want to touch back on something that you guys were talking about in the very beginning here, in regards to making sure you're working with accredited lenders when doing something like that. I'm not sure if you guys touched on it before I jumped on, but there's for such endeavors. Make sure you use somebody that is accredited like Joe. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Michael. And guys, whether you want to use me or you don't want to use me, I'm here to provide education and insight, but definitely surround yourself with very smart people. Because this is not, you're not building a bicycle, you're building a physical home. Okay, whether it's for 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, or 4 units, it's going to be an income producing opportunity for you. Very unique. I gave you an idea of how to get into building without building. Go through the experience of buying a piece of land and going through the permit process and getting the renderings. It's a lesser expensive endeavor to unload that to a GC that wants to build, or developer, or another landlord in the market. Now you become a land identifier. You become that guy or girl to go to on that. I want to thank our sponsors today: Landmark Capital, Percatech, Realty 411, and MB Capital. We're here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're here to provide education, networking, and strategy. My quote this morning: to be the best, you must be able to handle the worst. Everybody have a great Sunday morning. Take care of yourself. We'll be back here on the streets of Clubhouse, and Donna is now coming to appearance. Gentlemen, say goodbye to Donna.
Bye, Donna.
Bye, Joe.
Take care, guys. We'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds.